back to Online Darts, everyone, and here we are catching up with Chris Mason after what's been a roller coaster of a week, mate. So have you taken it all in, what you've done and what you've opened doors to and what the fans now perceive you? The list is endless.
Yeah, it was a bit of a weird one. Obviously, I had plenty of notice that I was playing in this and tried as much as I could to put as many hours in as possible. And Mark and Wary and Luke and a few of the lads back home have been sort of putting me through my paces as much time as I've had. And then obviously I've known for quite a while that, well, I was offered the place in the Worlds in February, and I was I said, look, let me have a think about it, and I'd like to have made my decision after playing last week in week 12, but before that, the practice has been going okay, and I spoke to a couple of close friends about it and the missus and sort of got their feedback, and it was very much sort of, well, if you want to, then just do it and go for it. And obviously I've watched all of the senior stuff with a lot of interest just to see how it was going, and I thought, give it a bash. And then obviously that was kept all quiet, and then it all started last Monday. Group A, bit of a rocky start, but I was still fairly confident that the numbers weren't reflecting the sort of the table. And of course I've been doing this for a while, so I sort of understand the format that, listen, day one's pretty irrelevant, and I'm going to get 2 bites of the cherry anyway, because whatever happens in Group A, I'm either coming back for Group B or, in my case, Group C, which I felt a little bit hard done by, to be honest. When I break down the numbers, I knew I threw some garbage in there, but that's expected. I was never the most consistent player anyway. My highs were really high, but my B game was always the thing that sort of let me down and meant that I lost probably a few more matches than I'd like to have done. But ultimately it sort of prepped me well for the Thursday and Friday, and the Thursday I just hit the ground running and won 5 out of 5.
What was that realisation like when you made the final?
Yeah, a little bit weird. I was twitchy first thing Monday, and then in the afternoon I felt a lot better. Tuesday I felt great. Wednesday didn't really have a nerve. Maybe the opening leg of the opening match of the day, and then obviously I had a fair few averages in the mid and high 90s and some in the late 80s, and then I had that 103, and then the 10 dart was thrown in there, a couple of 12s, and I thought, hello, I can still turn it on. And you think, ultimately, I thought going into the finals that there was a bit of pressure, and my group's tough. But all I just kept saying to myself, if all those good averages I had, I just need to muster them up all into one night. And really, the only reason my averages weren't where I'd like to have them to have been, because there was the odd iffy leg, and if my opponent would have gone out for a start, that leg would have been wiped out, and I'd have maintained a decent average. But I think my finishing was decent under pressure. Or if I missed them by a mile, but I took out some real key shots in the week. The 130 against Dubby,
151.
The 151, There was some real positive moments, especially this early on. But a lot of people have, even Charlotte, she's like, well, you're not really, don't really seem, that euphoria you would expect. Well, so I suppose I've matured and learned over the years not to get too carried away with it all, and just try and keep it reined in and just go about it quietly this time around.
A couple of bits from all this. First one, playing in a televised 9-dart shootout. First time you've ever experienced that. What's that pressure like? Because it's the equivalent of a penalty shootout in football.
Yeah, the only thing I can sort of compare it to, I played in the World Pairs in the 90s, and we had a similar thing, but it was like a bull shootout. I remember it being absolutely terrifying. This was no different, because it's unknown territory for all of us up there. And then I started with that awful throw, and I thought, where has that come from? Get the first dart, and there's a chance. I hit 41 180s in the week, so I can still hit a max, and it was just nowhere near. And then fortunately for me, I think Richie and Tony, felt the same pressure. It was it was stomach-churningly nerve-wracking.
A couple of bits as well. Obviously, you've openly spoke about the troubles that you had during your career and towards the end, and it drove you to places that you never wanted to go back to again. Was there part of you that was very apprehensive about putting yourself back into this environment?
Yeah, absolutely. Which is why it sort of took so long to make the decision, and which is why I've sort of dealt with it in a manner of there's no expectation, absolutely none, because I can't afford to put myself through that again mentally. And I'm sort of approaching 10 years medication free, and there's no way, and that's taken like literally so much hard work behind the scenes to get myself where I'm in that, where I'm level, and hence the gym and the endorphins produced in the gym and all the other positive chemicals that happen when you work out and you feel better, and I was always conscious there's no way I'm ever sort of slipping back to the person I was. And I think my whole attitude towards life, my whole attitude towards playing, I won't. This week's been, building up to it. Yeah, I've hardly trained for a month, which has been a challenge in itself. But of course, I couldn't risk an injury, or my elbow's a little bit fragile at the best of the times, and I thought, right, just ease it down. But I've been doing a little bit of running and things like that. Not as much as I'd like to be doing, but that's something I'm going to have to learn how to manage going forward. But yeah, I just keep everything under wraps and play it down and keep it cool. And that way, there's no pressure on me, and I can avoid sort of getting involved. Yeah, and it worked. I understand that. That there was some great stuff and there was some very ordinary and some very poor stuff, but that's just, I've seen better players, way better players than me do exactly the same. So like over the moon, it's been an eye-opener. It's been great to test myself mentally, to not sort of get where before I'd have been devastated to go up there and average 70, where I'm in a position, very fortunately, where I can laugh it off. It's not there's no financial damage. It's only to myself. But if I don't really care about it don't really matter. Other people can, the internet trolls and people who wouldn't even have the guts to come here to watch, never mind get on stage. They're the ones that seem to worry about it rather than me, because I honestly couldn't give a hoot.
You must be blown away that the response you got off of social media and all platforms. I know you're not on Twitter, but I know you obviously still see stuff through Charlotte's account and the Modus account and everything like that. But Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, the amount of love that you got, and the new fans were like, I didn't realise Chris could play. They see you as the commentator and they're like, oh wow, and the old fans were like, this is brilliant as well. So you must be blown away with the response.
It literally has been 99.9999% positive. But again, what I've learned in my life is to anything that's a negative towards I remove from my life. I just remove it, and hence why I don't do real social media anymore. Facebook's a little bit different. If you want to have a comment, you've got to be brave enough to do it under your own name, otherwise there'd be no, I don't mean that in any like a threat, but it's all right. All these people make up these fake names, and they've all got this massive opinion on everything, but then hide behind profile. Yeah, exactly. So anybody that pops up with some kind of negative comment, I laugh, because it's funny, because there's no negatives. If you don't like something, then I don't like wrestling, right? But I don't go on and moan about it, or message wrestlers or something. I don't know what it is. It doesn't interest me, so it doesn't impact on my life. And again, it's how I've learned as a coping mechanism. Anything that doesn't impact on my life, I have nothing to do with, and I treat life like that. You'll never see me comment about football. I don't know anything about it. Do I sit down and enjoy lads and get a Chinese in or something and have a couple of cans of beer and watch a game? Yeah, but I don't know enough about it to have a comment. And again, I just don't put myself out there anymore for ridicule or banter, as some people want to call it, or abuse. There's no point. There's no point in responding. If anybody's got an issue, like the thousands of people I'm around all of the time, I never meet one of them, and I realised many years ago, their life is so bad, and I feel so sorry for them that they have to consume their life with others and try and bring you down to their level, because that's where they're at. That's not where I'm at. My life is perfect.
The averages that you threw, the top ones, would have put you in the top 10 of the Challenge Tour rankings. Now, I'm not saying to go to huge or anything like that, but if you can take those performances into the seniors, you will be a huge danger at the Circus Tavern.
Yeah, I think if I could reproduce some of the stuff I played last week when it was at its very best, then yeah, and obviously I took a lot of confidence. It was jammed in there, nowhere near the numbers we're going to have at the Circus Tavern, but the fact is it's still doing it in front of an audience. I know it's live on TV or under the lights, that whole environment. It sort of fills you with enough confidence to hope that you won't go up there and embarrass yourself, and that's the key thing. I'm not going up there to pick up a first round losers check or anything like that. I wouldn't. Hence why I've not played in anything like it before. I don't need to put myself through it, and I think you can. Although I don't have much legacy, what I did do well in the game, I wouldn't want to ruin. So, the whole idea that if I'm going to do something, I'm going to be committed, I'm going to give it my all, but it doesn't mean anything if it goes wrong.
Moving away from here, Mace, the pundit head, back on now. Plenty going on in the world of darts, and Michael Van Gerwen, for a man that was washed up, finished, would never do it again, has ended up winning the Premier League, the match play, and has just added the World Grand Prix to
all those expert non-dart players again.
Is he one World Championship win away this year from arguably having one of his best ever years?
Yeah, I think because where we've seen him before, it's been like just complete dominance. I think what's happening to him now means a little bit more, because where before it was very easy, now he's having to really work his socks off for it, because of his levels come down a bit, but everybody else's levels has come up to him. So there's a level playing field now, and he's having to really find something special to win these tournaments, and I think that's why we see more of a response from him. The early ones are massive to him. The ones in the middle, we know he's a winning machine. He loves winning, but when I get to talk to him now, he loves winning now. He loves turning them over, because they've all had their say on where they think he is, and he's not the best player in the world, and I'm the best player in the world, and that whole thing, which is great for the game, because although dominance is good to get eyes on the sport because of records and everything else, there's nothing better than turning your TV on or going to an event and not knowing who's going to win, because that's what makes sport great. It's that unpredictability, and although he has won the big events, there's still that little bit of vulnerability there. There's also the fact that there's a group of 8, maybe 10 players that can play as well as him. Can they do it at that time, at that moment, under that pressure? Yes, we know they can. So now, and especially as working in the world of television, it's just one of the greatest times ever for darts.
Leicester as well. He came out on top in the mind games as well. There was plenty said in Leicester, and this is going back to an era of you and Taylor, Nico and Taylor, where the mind games all started. And for once, MVG didn't start them, but he certainly finished them in an emphatic manner.
Yeah, well, we've seen it from Peter Wright before, from time to time, and because it's worked in the recent, when he said he was going to win the match play, and he went on and done it. And I mean, if you don't go into a tournament thinking you're going to win it when you're at that level, then maybe take up something else. But when your form doesn't back up your words, it just adds pressure. I just literally had a situation, and I didn't want to get involved, and Conan White goes, looking forward to playing you on Thursday night. And I said, I wouldn't be. I've watched you play this week. And I'm like, why even go there? But that's the thing. You've got someone like Peter Wright he doesn't know what he's going to produce. His form's been up and down himself, and then he likes loading himself with pressure. But that backfired badly in Leicester, really badly, and it was a shame because everybody wants to see Peter Wright playing at his best when he's absolutely on it. Same with Gezi and Johnny Clayton, Luke Humphries, Gando when he was absolutely on it was just Adrian Lewis, MVG. The list is endless. So I'm saying we just got a great time for darts, but. I think that was important for Michael just to sort of say, hang on a minute, lads, please don't forget about me, But again, we a couple of years ago, we wouldn't have been, 4 or 5 years ago, we wouldn't have even been having that conversation. But you've got that feeling. I thought Peter Wright in Gibraltar played some outstanding stuff at times and was a bit unlucky in the end, or didn't take the opportunity Damo gave him. But there's another player who, myself and Nico have been harping on, as everybody else has, who pays close attention to the sport, who's got a massive future, and he's just starting out. Johnny Clayton's had a little dip in form, but it's gonna come back. Luke Humphries, incredible on the Euro Tour. He's #1 seed for the European Championships coming up in just about a week or so's time on ITV4. Don't forget. It's just a great time to, whether you work in the sport or you're just a dart fan.
You mentioned Gando there. To disappoint all Gary Anderson fans, is this nearing the end? Because at the match play, didn't look himself. Certainly didn't look himself at the World Series finals or at the World Grand Prix. Unthinkably, not at the Grand Slam as we record this. Players' Championship finals, I still think he's got work to do, if I remember rightly. So we may not see Gary until the Worlds.
Yeah, I think that I'm not sure whether that would suit him or not in terms of preparation for the Worlds, but you'd have to be brave or stupid to write him off any time, or both, because there's very few players in terms of natural ability that I can think of that comes close. Right from day dot, Gary could just play darts, and I remember when he was in his early 20s and
dream boy.
Yeah, and infuriatingly we'd all be up there practicing, he'd be chatting with his pals and all that, have sort of 5 or 10 minutes and go up there and hit 100 averages back in the day. He'd be playing best of fives going 12, 15, 13, 11, 12, 12. He was remarkable, and I think it's really dangerous for someone like Gary just to sort of presume the only time I believe he's not capable of going on and picking up a title, including the Worlds, is when he says to me, or I see him in an interview go, I've definitely had enough, because he's only a month of hard work away from going up there and being capable of hitting 105, 110 average. And when you've got that in your locker, and if, as old Dennis would say, if your name's on pot, lads, and the stars are aligned and everything else, he could go up there and win any tournament he enters. And I do believe he did an exhibition somewhere in Sheffield.
He beat Gezi in the final.
I know it's only an exhibition, but if you've got any doubt in your armoury or anything else like that, you don't beat Gezi. If it's an exhibition or not, Gezi don't really take anything not seriously.
Plenty going on in the PDC as well, plenty of announcements that have happened. But first of all, I want to get your point on a snooker announcement that may impact darts. Now, there's been a lot of call for a long, long time to make the Pro Tour profitable for everyone, as in you don't go to work and not get paid.
Exactly.
The snooker have introduced it where there is now money,
retainer, isn't it?
A retainer that we will guarantee you as a tour card holder you will earn X amount. I don't know what it is off the top of my head.
But once you've earned it, you've got to give it back.
But you will, yeah. But there's still a guarantee there. Will darts follow suit? Should darts follow suit? Maybe not in the same way, but is it at that point now in the sport where, as a tour card holder, a professional darts player, you should earn money because you've done the hard bit, you've won that card? Where at the moment, it's kind of irrelevant because you've won it, but it doesn't really mean anything because you're not guaranteed anything for it.
No, but if you don't go to work, you don't get paid.
But at the moment, you can still go to work and not get paid. Where you're outlaying money for.
Well, if you go to work and you're unproductive and you don't make the company money, you don't get paid.
But.
Or you get a sack.
I get that, but the caveat is, as a new tour card holder,
well, yeah,
with the draws, you could draw Gezi, Peter, and Michael in your first 3 events. And
I know. I've been an advocate for years. If you're in a system that's being shown on a broadcast, which it is, everybody who is in that draw should be guaranteed prize money.
Yeah, I'm not saying a lot, but at least enough to cover your costs.
Yeah, at least, yeah. You know, the reality of it is, those outside of the elite are still working. They're still trying to make it to that very, very top, and it is still only a very elite group, very much like in snooker. Your fringe players who are never getting that exposure and that opportunity to climb that ladder and develop. It's like saying we've got the development tour. All the development tours develops you for the pro tour. There's nothing in place to get you ready for those big pressure match situations, playing under the lights and everything else. So you're going to have this constant conveyor belt. You're going to get the odd one. You're going to get your Josh Rocks and that kind of thing come through that are just super talented. But you're also going to lose a vast group of players that either become disillusioned, literally run massive debt up that they're going to end up paying back for years. You know, most sports people are a little bit deluded. You've got to have that little bit of delusion in there somewhere to think you can be great. But again, we've got a system.
Well,
but it was totally no. As if why would we? We are a breeding factory for potential professional full-time dart players. We give them the opportunity here to earn over £100,000 a year.
Well, this is my next question. With the Motor Super Series, the way it is, the figures are there in black and white. From, I think it's around 71 or 72 on the rolling order of merit, you can earn more money playing here regularly.
Yeah.
Along with, you can still go to your WDF events, which we'll come on to shortly.
Yeah, ADC.
Your ADC that are paying very good money for their tour. To the point now where, if you're somewhere in there, do you now have a decision to make whether that card is worth it?
Well, it's very hard. The talent has got to match the ambition, and you've also got to be in a blessed position that if you're working, it doesn't impact you in terms of how much you can practice and how much time you can have off. There's loads of factors in, what the PDC have done in creating these opportunities is incredible, because they weren't there when I was a player. I've said many times, people think I'm bitter. I'm over the moon. I'm absolutely blessed to be in my position, and more power to the PDC because they're creating more opportunities. It's getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. But if I was a young player, not necessarily young, 18, 19, 20, and Nathan Gerben, for example, right?
You've mentored Nathan quite a lot recently.
Yeah, exactly, right. And he was devastated not to win the Dev Tour. But I think 5 players in front of him were all tour card holders. How's that developing? It's not. So, he was gutted about that. Absolutely over the moon. He's going to get into the UK Open, which is fabulous. He's made the final of the World Youths. So he's starting to show the credentials and potential at senior level. He was showing at junior level. And my reaction, I don't want him to have a tour card. He's not ready. He's not ready. But then where does he go? How does he earn money? What did the winner of the Challenge Tour get this year? £9,900.
Yeah, around say 10k, give or around that.
Someone on Saturday night here is going to get this for being runner-up, and not be restricted of where they play, when they play. If they're over, and again, if they're over 50, they've got the senior stuff to play, and things like that. I don't want him, although he's played on the Pro Tour as a reserve player because of his ranking in the Dev Tour, Challenge Tour, Challenge Tour. He's at 9 darters, but he's coming up against elite level players who have got way more experience under pressure. So what does this place give him?
Experience under pressure.
Experience under pressure, under the lights. When you can get used to playing in this environment, and then you're taken back into that environment, you've improved. You're dealing with things better. And I think I hope we don't get to a stage because it doesn't sit right with me where people are going, do I actually really want a tour card? Because you should be ambitious to want one. What it will be down to is, can I afford to have a tour card? And that's where the PDC have got a problem. When you've got people going, well, I'd rather finish 17th if it was 16. I'm pretty much going to play in every Pro Tour. I can play in every Challenge Tour. I can play every cycle of this to try and win. And listen, don't worry about it. It's the £5 for winning it for the week. It's the 20 grand. This is only going to be going up. Plus, you got all your appearance money. It's worth well over 30 grand every 12 weeks. So, if you had an unbelievable time here for a year, there's 120 grand. And again, it's just down. And I was definitely disappointed when Matt was asked the question about, would you consider, even if you let, I don't know, the 97 to 128 play in it, it's not costing them any money. It's not going to impact on them whatsoever. What it's going to do is give those players an opportunity to get a bit of finance back, a bit of experience. Someone who goes on to win one of these, say this week, one of the lads that are trying to be a pro player, that 20 grand and the 5 grand that they won for winning their week, that could set them up for next year for playing on the Challenge Tour or attempting to go at Q School.
Oh, huge.
But because I don't know, I'm disappointed with the almost. I'm not sure if it's a negative vibe, but listen, Matt knows more about the industry than I do, but it was the fact that what negative impact does it have? We're not asking for Michael Van Gerwen and Gezi Price to play in it. They don't need to. They're established pro players. But what negative impact would it have on those fringe players earning nothing to play in this, improve as players, to then go back to playing in the Pro Tours with a bit more knowledge that can hopefully make them go deeper in tournaments to earn more money, to climb the rankings, but to become the next generation of pro players?
As well, with everything, the World Series in January, somewhat surprising, and I can't think the top players are going to be happy with that.
Yeah, listen, again, I very rarely criticise anything that the PDC do, not for any other reason apart from the fact that it's virtually impossible. And again, their hands are tied. Where do they fit it in? How do they squeeze it in? These territories want the darts. They pay for it. The top players in World Darts are in a very privileged position in terms of the opportunity and the money they can earn. They're all guaranteed a nice amount of money to go. Nice trip to Bahrain, not the worst place in the world. I've been out there to do exhibitions literally just prior to lockdown. One of the nicest places I've ever been to. And if people think no one's going to go and watch it, you'll be blown away about the amount of people that will attend it. There's a big market, and it's going there. They're not. It's not going to be like the Premier League, but it's a different type of audience. There's a lot of expats over there. They're doing a lot of work in those parts in the world, as we've seen with the boxing, to try and encourage people to maybe treat it as a weekend away and bring in tourism. And like I say, there's a lot of expats in Bahrain. I've done the British clubs over there, and they have been rammed with fans. So horrible timing for the players. But if you said to me, or next week after doing 2 weeks of work, oh mate, do you want a trip to Bahrain? We'll guarantee you 10 grand. We'll put you up in a nice hotel and play darts for the weekend. I go, oh,
go on then.
you know, I know. Again, and it's all about managing your diary. And I think Matt was spot on. No one's hands are tied. Don't want to go, don't go. But if no one wants to go and Matt wants to send me, I'll definitely go. Copenhagen, another beautiful city. I know it's straight on the back of the world, but that really only affects a handful of people, doesn't it? The semi-finalists and the finalists, really. Outside of that, I don't think it'll be too bad. And listen, it's a good thing to moan about, if you know what I mean.
From one end of darts to the other, I want to pick your brain on the situation at the WDF, because it's heated up a little bit, and your eye roll says it all there, because you read the comments on social media. The lack of information is ridiculous, and when you have established players within their cycle ridiculing them on social media, all we want is information. We've got the Masters in December, we've got a date, but we've got a prize pool, so at the moment players don't actually know how much they're playing for in the second.
The bigger problem is it's not affordable for the players to go.
I was about to say this, that at that time of year it's going to cost them an arm and a leg to go.
Well, a lot of players have told me, because the hotel is quite small,
it's expensive.
It's seriously expensive, and a lot of players that have no reason to lie to me I've spoke to in since the announcement, and because the prize money isn't anywhere enough, like you're not guaranteed any money. A lot of them are saying it's not financially viable for them to go, and that's completely the opposite of I just can't get my head around. And remember, this is being run by it's not being run by the WDF.
It's the Dutch Darts World Federation, whatever the name is, but yeah.
Which do have a good track record of running events. So you're dealing with a group of people that have just come out of a pandemic that are 99% amateur players who all work full-time on a limited budget from a demographic that hasn't got pools of money to spend, and you put it in one of the most expensive places in Holland to go to and attend at a time that's already going to be expensive, and wonder why everyone's moaning with no real prize money. I mean, it's gone from just ridiculous to bonkers, and I don't get how a group of people can get it so wrong. I just honestly, do they just go, oh, this we'll do it here, and then, oh yeah, there's an hotel, don't worry about that. I don't worry about the time of year, don't worry about the cost of flights, or you know, it's not even a close enough place where Brits could get the, you know, I know it's not all about the Brits, but you know, everybody's got to travel in there somehow. It's just you sort of you hope and pray that side of the sport can be resurrected and make a massive comeback in the game, because dart players need, like what we're doing, like what the ADC are doing, the challenge tours, the dev tours, the JDC, your local tournaments that players put on, your local oddity camp tournaments. We need those. You know, they need to, like the stuff England Darts do, the Isle of Man and all of those events, Welsh Open, English, they need to happen. And you know, what should be the forerunner in that area of the game isn't just. I honestly am baffled. The more I read it, the more it makes me just sort of go, what they do, what you do. Is no one sort of sat there and went, have you thought about how they're all going to get here? I don't worry about that. Do you know how much that hotel is a night? I don't worry about that. You know, it's.
And with the Masters, hand in hand comes the World Championships. We're now October the 18th. We'll timestamp it. Mm-hmm. So October the 18th, there is still no WDF World Championship Lakeside, wherever it's going to be, whatever it's going to be called. There's still no announcement. season is coming towards an end, and the players have no end goal. They don't know if they're playing for it, when they're playing for it,
how much they're
playing for, and look, we don't live under a rock. We know the proposed dates for it. It's moved to an absolute bonkers time at the beginning of February. If it happens, it's not announced or anything like that, but obviously we're led to believe it's going to be at the beginning of February, clashing with other events.
Yeah, which is when I found out the proposed dates, I said I'm absolutely devastated for Neil Duff, because he's already agreed to play in the World Seniors, which means he's not going to be able to defend his world title. Because, and again, I'm not trying to defend the undefendable, but if it's a case that it's Lakeside and they said this is the only week you can have it, or there's no money and all that, say we're cancelling and find another date, find another venue, find a, you know, the WDF events, right, are global. They're absolutely massive. The amount of events and the amount of players globally and annually that play in a WDF system, right? You take £1 from every player for every entry around the world. There's your money. Do one tournament a year, one tournament, one TV tournament, one major, and just get it right and reward the players. It cannot be complicated.
Have they tried to hang on to this Lakeside thing too much? Because I get, going back last year, it was the first one in brackets and the nostalgia around it, but let's be frank, it didn't work. They didn't sell tickets. The draw to Lakeside doesn't seem to be there anymore. I'm not sure about that. Again, the marketing was terrible. The price of tickets were absolutely ridiculous. The price to stay at Lakeside was absolutely ridiculous. The whole thing around it was, again, bonkers. Like, and I've said this before, the reason the PDC work, or Matchroom, is they find the best people, pay them the best money, and get the best results. You don't produce results, you're gone. You know, Barry and mediocrity. Eddie's no different. Eddie gets the best people to do his media stuff, the best people to do everything. He finds and headhunts and employs the best. You know, and I cannot understand how, after all the mistakes of all the time during lockdown, when you've got all that time to plan and come up with a plan, you know, find somebody who used to do it for a job, that's a darts fan, who was very good at their job, who don't need the money per se, but wants a little hobby or something like that, where you can, or find people that you can pick their brains. But you know, it cannot be that complicated. You're not running a multi-billion pound thing like Matchroom, you know, or DAZN or anything like that. You're literally, all you've got to do, all the other events take care of themselves because they've got their own organisers within the system. You've got to run one event a year, one, and you can't get it right. What message does that send out to all the players who remain committed to that system? You know, it's just I just can't get my head around it. And again, if they were a little bit more transparent and going, right, like, this is what's going on, or this is why we can't do this, but the fact that everything's smoke and mirrors. I was about to say, surely radio silence from the people at the top of the WDF is worrying. There's been not a peep.
No.
We've had a couple of statements put out on the website, no name to it or anything like that. It's just a written press release or whatever you want to call it, but
which has no real
there's
substance.
There's no one at the top of the WDF coming out and telling the players anything.
Yeah, but that was the BDO was very much like that, to be honest. So it's almost like they've got nowhere. And listen, I have no financial interest in it. I've done some media stuff in the past, and it's my choice that I no longer want to do any media with anything like that. Just as a darts fan and somebody that played under that WDF banner for many years, people forget that WDF was around since 1974. the World Championships have always been the WDF World Championships. They were played under the banner of the BDO because they were the organisers. It was the WDF World Championships. It's always been the WDF World Masters. It's called the Windmill World Masters because they were the sponsors of the event. But yeah, it just saddens me to see, and the fact that I know so many people and so many of my friends have donated so much of their time and money and effort to travel to chase these points and, you know, continue to show their loyalty, which whatever that means anymore. Yeah, sad times, and you know, I wish everybody all the best going to the Windmill World Master. I hope it works out. It was a massive success, but.
On the Masters, before we wrap up the bit on this segment, the fact they've changed the format to leg play as well is...
That can't be right.
That the set play, the best of 3 legs to a set, was the Windmill World Masters. That was the selling point.
Yeah.
And whoever sat down in a meeting and went, this is a good idea, in my opinion, needs to be examined.
Again, it's people getting involved that don't know anything, either don't know the history of the sport or don't understand sport. What made that tournament so unique was its format. Like the News of the World before it, like the World Grand Prix nowadays, like the World Championships, 5 legs per set. You know, like the match play. You know, the ultimate leg play event. You know, all these events are unique for a reason, and you know that's
selling points.
That's their selling point. Yeah. You know, you see it every year. People get excited about the Grand Prix because it's something different and because it's unique to that event. You know, set play with double in, but the Masters is you know.
People still rave about the News of the World now.
Yeah.
We haven't seen it for how many years, but it's still legendary in the sport.
Exactly, best of 3 all the way through from 8 foot. You know, you couldn't. You know, I mean, when it was brought back. I think the PDC were involved in when it was brought back before the News of the World as a newspaper went under, and so did the money, and they kept it the same. Why would you change it? You just that's like the snooker shootout now being changed to something totally different. You know, I know things evolve and everything else, but once something's got its own unique selling point, you don't change it.
Last one for me, because I know you've got another one to do shortly, and we've babbled for nearly 45 minutes as it is. Early prediction, World Championship. Where would your 5 pence be right now?
Wow, it's a bit early.
I say it because they're all talking about it already. They're all going on about Ali Valley.
Michael Smith.
Like that.
Yeah, Michael Smith, probably because I want him to win, and maybe because I think it's time, and maybe when he goes into a World Championship where everybody's not talking about him, maybe that's enough of the pressure off that allows him to eventually get over the line. Listen, he's been incredible, making multiple finals and
2 World Finals already.
Yeah, 2 World Finals already, and look. You know, it's got no ball, says Dave from his mum's box room. But yeah, I think it's a left field choice, but for an outsider and someone I'd like to see win it, Michael Smith.
Mate, it's an absolute pleasure. 45 minutes and absolutely rattled by, mate. Thank you very much as always.
No worries.